The research station called Horizon's Edge floated in the darkness of space. It circled a dying star that gave weak, red light. The station was old and large, built by 12 different species who had joined together long ago. They called themselves the Galactic Collective. Scientists from many worlds lived and worked here, studying things that no one understood. Park arrived on a small transport ship. She was a human woman, 32 years old, with tired eyes and messy black hair. She had spent 6 months traveling from Earth to reach this place. Her job was simple on paper. She studied alien life forms, but the collective had asked for her specifically because humans had a reputation. They were strange creatures who did not react to things the way other species did. The station commander was a named Governor. He had 4 arms and gray skin that looked like stone. His eyes were yellow and showed no warmth. He met at the docking bay and looked at her like she was a tool he had ordered and was not sure would work. "You are smaller than I expected," he said. His voice was deep and rumbled like rocks falling. Shrugged, humans usually are. Governor led her through the station. The hallways were wide and cold. Different species walked past them. Some had too many legs, some floated instead of walking. Some looked almost human but with wrong colors or extra eyes. None of them looked at for long. Humans were new to the galactic community. Most species did not know what to think of them yet. "You have read the files," Governor said. It was not a question. "I have," answered. "Then you know what we keep in the lower levels." Nodded. She had read the files many times during her journey. Specimen 227, a creature found on a dead moon 3 years ago. A mining team had discovered it hiding in a cave. Within minutes, all 6 miners were dead. Their hearts had simply stopped. There were no wounds, no signs of attack. They had died of fear. The collective sent a research team, then another, then soldiers. Every living being that got close to the creature experienced the same thing: absolute terror, the kind of fear that lived in the oldest parts of the brain, the kind that made hearts forget how to beat. 14 researchers had died. The longest anyone had survived in the same room as the creature was 43 seconds. They called it many things: the abomination, the void beast, the heart stopper. The official name in the files was boring, specimen 227, but everyone on the station had other names for it: monster, nightmare, evil. Governor stopped at a heavy door. "This is the observation room. You can see the containment chamber from here. 17 layers of energy shielding separate you from it. You are safe here." Walked into the room. There were screens and control panels everywhere. A large window looked down into a dark chamber below. The lighting was dim. The walls were thick metal. In the corner of the chamber, something moved. Felt her heart beat faster. Even through 17 layers of shielding, even through thick glass, she could feel something. A whisper of dread. A cold touch on the back of her mind. She understood now why people died. If this was what she felt from here, she could not imagine what it was like inside that room. She forced herself to look at the creature. It was tall, maybe 8 feet when it stood straight, but it was not standing straight now. It was pressed into the corner like it was trying to push through the wall. Its body was covered in something black. Not skin, not fur. Something like a membrane that shifted and moved like it was alive on its own. The black surface absorbed light. Looking at it was like looking at a hole in reality. Where a face should be, there was only darkness. But sometimes, small lights flickered inside that darkness, like stars dying in a tiny universe. Watched for a long time. The creature did not move much. Sometimes it shifted. Sometimes it flinched when a sound echoed in the chamber. The lights in its face flickered when the observation room door opened and closed as scientists came and went. "It has not eaten since capture," Governor said. He stood behind with his 4 arms crossed. "We have offered it many things: meat, plants, energy. It refuses everything." "Maybe it does not eat the way we understand eating," said. "Perhaps, or perhaps it is simply waiting to die. Some researchers believe it wants to end its existence. Others believe it is planning something, saving strength for an attack. Did not answer. She was watching the way the creature pressed itself into the corner, the way it flinched at sounds. She had seen this behavior before, on Earth, in shelters full of abandoned animals, in hospitals full of sick children. This was not the behavior of a predator waiting to attack. This was the behavior of something terrified. She watched for 6 hours. She took notes. She ignored the growing headache from the faint psychic pressure that leaked through the shielding. When her shift ended, she went to her small room and lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. The next morning, she submitted a request to the station council. She wanted to enter the containment chamber. Governor called an emergency meeting. 12 council members from 12 species sat in a circle and looked at like she had asked to set herself on fire. "This is suicide," said a scientist. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 2 hearts. "The creature kills everything that enters. Your kind has no special protection against psychic attacks." "That is true," said calmly, "but I am not planning to attack it. I am planning to sit with it." The council did not understand. They argued for 3 hours. They showed her footage of researchers dying. They explained the science of the creature's fear field. They told her that her death would be meaningless. Listen to all of it. Then she said, "I am not asking for permission. Earth's research protocols give me the right to autonomous study. I am informing you of my decision as a courtesy." Governor's yellow eyes narrowed. "If you die, your government will blame us." "I have signed waivers. No one will blame anyone, and I will not die." "How can you know this?" Thought about the question. She thought about the creature in its corner, the way it flinched, the way it wrapped its membrane around itself like it was trying to disappear. "Because that creature is not a monster," she said. "It is afraid. And I know what it is like to be afraid and alone in a place where no one understands you." The council voted. 11 votes against. 1 abstention from the human observer who was not really part of the council, but attended meetings as a formality. The vote did not matter. Its appeal was filed under Earth protocols. 3 days later, her access was granted. She stood outside the containment chamber door. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking. Every part of her brain screamed that this was wrong, that she should run, that death waited on the other side of this door. She took a deep breath. She thought about the creature flinching at sounds. She thought about its darkness and its tiny flickering lights. "Okay," she whispered to herself, "let us meet properly." The door opened. The fear hit her like a wave of ice water, and Park stepped inside. The fear was like nothing had ever felt. It was not like watching a scary movie. It was not like hearing a strange noise at night. This was ancient fear, the kind of fear that lived in human bones long before humans had words. It was the fear of the dark cave, the fear of the thing with too many teeth, the fear that made ancestors run and hide and never look back. Her body wanted to scream. Her legs wanted to run. Her heart was beating so fast that she could hear it in her ears. Every muscle told her to leave, to escape, to get away from this thing that her brain knew was death. Sat down on the cold floor. She crossed her legs like she was going to meditate. She put her hands on her knees. She did not look directly at the creature. She just sat there, breathing slowly, fighting every instinct she had. In the corner of the chamber, the creature watched her. Its membrane rippled like dark water. The tiny lights in its face flickered fast, like a heartbeat made of stars. It did not move toward her. It pressed itself harder into the corner, as if trying to become part of the wall. Understood, the creature was scared of her too. She did not speak. She did not move. She just existed in the same space as this thing that everyone called a monster. The fear pressed against her mind like a heavy blanket. It made her head hurt. It made her chest tight. But she had felt fear before. She had grown up poor and hungry. She had worked 3 jobs to pay for school. She had faced things that wanted to break her, and she had not broken. This was just another thing that wanted to break her. She would not let it. 1 hour passed, then 2. The creature did not move from its corner, did not move from her spot on the floor. The observation room above was full of scientists watching screens, waiting for her to die. At hour 3's legs went numb. She shifted a little to get blood flowing again. The creature flinched at her movement. Its membrane pulled around its body. More lights flickered in its face. "Sorry," said softly. Her voice echoed in the empty chamber. "I did not mean to scare you." The creature made no sound. It had no mouth that could see. But the lights in its face changed pattern. They flickered slower, like they were listening. At hour 5, allowed herself to look at the creature more directly. She studied its shape. It was tall and thin. Its limbs were long and ended in something like fingers, but with too many joints. Its body had no clear front or back. The membrane covered everything, always moving, always shifting. She thought about what the files said. 14 dead researchers. All of them had entered with weapons, with equipment, with protective suits and scanning devices. All of them had come to study the creature like it was a thing, a specimen, something to be measured and poked and understood. None of them had come to sit with it. At hour 6, reached into her pack. She moved slowly and carefully. The creature's lights flickered faster with each small movement. She pulled out a simple thing, a thermal blanket. Every human researcher carried one. It was thin and silver, designed to keep body heat from escaping in emergency situations. She did not offer it to the creature. That would be too aggressive, too forward. Instead, she unfolded the blanket slowly and laid it on the floor between them. Then she moved back to her original spot and sat down again. The blanket sat there, silver and shining in the dim light. The creature stared at it. The lights in its face flickered in a pattern had not seen before. Curiosity, maybe. Confusion, she could not be sure. Hours passed. His body ached. Her head throbbed from the constant psychic pressure, but she stayed. She did not leave. She did not give up. At hour 11, the creature moved. It happened so slowly that almost missed it. One long limb reached out from the membrane. It stretched toward the blanket like a person reaching for something they expect to be taken away. The movement was careful, gentle, full of fear. The creature touched the blanket. The material crinkled under its touch. The creature froze. It stayed perfectly still for a full minute, like it was waiting for something bad to happen. Nothing bad happened. The creature pulled the blanket toward itself. It moved like a child taking a cookie it was not sure it was allowed to have. Slow, careful, ready to drop it and run. It wrapped the silver material around its dark body. The blanket was small compared to the creature. It barely covered half of its form, but the creature held it like it was the most precious thing in the universe. Smiled, it was a small smile, tired and genuine. "There you go," she said softly. "It is cold in here, is it not?" The creature's lights flickered. The pattern was different now, softer, slower. The psychic pressure in the room changed too. The terror did not disappear, but it felt different, less like being hunted, more like sitting next to someone who was very, very sad. Felt tears in her eyes. She did not know why. The emotion that replaced the fear was overwhelming. It was loneliness. 12,000 years of loneliness pressing against her mind. An endless night with no stars. A voice calling out into darkness and never hearing an answer. "You are alone," she whispered. "You have been alone for so long." The creature held its blanket. The lights in its face flickered like dying candles. Above them in the observation room, Governor watched with eyes that showed something they had never shown before. Uncertainty. He had been sure the human would die. He had been ready to record another death and move on with the termination process. Instead, he watched the monster curl around a simple blanket like a child with a favorite toy. "What is she doing?" asked the scientist. Governor did not answer for a long time. Finally, he said, "I do not know, but I think we should let her continue." In the chamber below, did not know she was being discussed. She only knew that her legs were numb and her head hurt and her heart was heavy with borrowed sadness. But she also knew something else, something important. She had been right. This creature was not a monster. It was not evil. It was not a weapon or a threat or any of the things the files said. It was a lost child, a scared child, a child who had been running from fear and loneliness for longer than human civilization had existed. She decided to give it a name. Names were important. Names meant you were not just a thing. Names meant someone saw you as real. She thought about what to call it. She looked at the tiny lights flickering in its dark face. They reminded her of something. Stars. Small stars in an endless night. She said softly, the Korean word for star, "I am going to call you." The creature's lights flickered. The blanket rustled as it shifted. And somewhere in the darkness of its form, something that might have been understanding began to grow. Stayed until her body could not take any more. When she finally stood to leave, her legs almost gave out. She was exhausted. Every muscle hurt. Her mind felt bruised from hours of psychic pressure. At the door, she turned back. Was still in its corner, wrapped in the silver blanket, lights flickering softly. "I will come back tomorrow," she said. "I promise." The door closed behind her, collapsed against the wall outside, breathing hard, shaking with exhaustion. Scientists surrounded her, asking questions, taking readings, checking her vital signs. She ignored them all. She just smiled and thought about the scared creature in the dark room, holding a cheap blanket like it was made of gold. Tomorrow, she would bring a bigger one. Weeks passed. Every day returned to the containment chamber. Every day she sat with. Every day she learned something new. The other scientists thought she was crazy. They whispered about her in the hallways. They called her the Death Seeker. They made bets about how long she would survive. But the days kept passing and kept living, and slowly the whispers changed to confusion. Governor watched her progress with growing interest. He did not understand what she was doing, but he could not deny the results. The creature that had killed 14 researchers now sat peacefully with this small human woman. Its fear field, while still present, had weakened whenever was in the room. Brought new things each day, more blankets, soft fabrics of different textures, small lights that glowed gently. She hung them around the chamber, creating pockets of warmth in the cold space. Watched everything she did with its flickering lights. Sometimes it touched the things she brought. Sometimes it just watched. By the third week, had started to approach her. The first time it happened, his heart nearly stopped. She was sitting in her usual spot when the darkness began to move toward her. Every instinct screamed danger, but she stayed still. She breathed slowly. She trusted what her eyes had shown her over the past weeks. Stopped about 3 feet away. Its membrane rippled nervously. Its lights flickered in uncertain patterns. It was afraid, realized. It was terrified that she would run like everyone else. "I am not going anywhere," she said softly. "Take your time." Days later, sat beside her for the first time, not touching, just beside, close enough that could feel the cold emanating from its form, close enough that the psychic pressure made her head pound, but also close enough to share space, to exist together. By the 5th week brought translation equipment. The collective had developed machines that could interpret many forms of communication, sounds, gestures, pheromones, even some basic psychic impressions. She did not know if it would work on, but she had to try. She set up the equipment and activated it. Then she sat and waited. For a long time, nothing happened. Wrapped its blankets around itself and watched her with its star-like lights. The equipment hummed softly, searching for patterns it could interpret. Then the screen flickered. Words appeared, broken and strange, but words. "Alone, long time, alone." Felt tears roll down her face. She did not wipe them away. "Yes," she said, her voice thick. "You have been alone for a very long time. I am sorry. Others run, others die not want, hurt not want." The words came slowly, like a child learning to speak for the first time. The machine struggled to translate the psychic impressions into human language, but the meaning was clear enough. "You did not want to hurt them," said. I know. Over the following days, the story emerged piece by piece. It was like putting together a puzzle with most of the pieces missing, but was patient. She asked simple questions and waited for the broken answers. Was not from this galaxy. Its kind, came from the spaces between stars. They were beings of dark matter and gravity, born in the void where light could not reach. They were ancient beyond human understanding. They had existed when the universe was young. They were peaceful. They did not eat flesh or plants or anything solid. They fed on cosmic radiation. They drifted through the darkness like whales through an ocean, speaking to each other in waves of gravity that crossed light years. But to other species, that speech was not sound. It was fear, pure, overwhelming terror that stopped hearts and shut down minds. They did not understand why other beings died when they tried to speak. They did not know that their voice was poison to creatures of flesh and blood. A war came. A species that could not name, a species driven mad by the fear, decided that there were monsters that needed to be destroyed. They built weapons that could hurt beings of darkness. They hunted across the void. Was young when it happened, barely formed. It did not understand war or death or fear. It only knew that its family was dying. Its people were screaming in voices that killed anyone who heard them, and no one would help them because everyone who heard them died. The scattered. They ran to the farthest corners of the universe. Most died alone in the cold between galaxies, drifted for 12,000 years looking for anyone who would not run or die. It found only silence. Presented her findings to the station council. She stood before 12 species and told them the truth. "Is not a weapon," she said. "Is a child, an orphan, the last survivor of a genocide that happened before most of your species evolved. Its psychic emissions are not attacks. They are distress signals. Imagine screaming for help and watching everyone who hears you fall dead. Imagine that happening for 12,000 years." The council was quiet. Some members shifted uncomfortably. Others stared at their screens, avoiding sighs. Governor spoke first. "What you describe is tragic, but it does not change the facts. The creature remains dangerous. Its presence kills. We cannot allow it to exist near populated areas." "Then help me teach it control," said. "Help me show it how to speak without killing. It is learning. Every day it is learning. Its fear field is weaker now. It can be done." "The collective has already made its decision," Governor said. "Termination protocols will begin in 30 days. The creature is too dangerous to live." Stared at him. The other council members avoided her gaze. She understood what was happening. They were afraid, not of, but of what represented. A universe full of things they did not understand. A reminder that their power and their science meant nothing against forces older than stars. It was easier to kill the thing that scared them than to face their own smallness. "No," said. Governor's yellow eyes narrowed. "Excuse me." "I said no. You do not get to kill. It is not a specimen or a threat or a problem to be solved. It is a person. A scared, lonely person who has spent thousands of years reaching out for connection and finding only death. I will not let you destroy it because you are too afraid to try understanding. You do not have the authority to stop us." Met his eyes. Her voice was calm and steady. "Then you will have to go through me." The council erupted into arguments. Voices overlapped. Fists and tentacles and other limbs slammed on tables, but did not stay to listen. She walked out of the chamber and headed back to containment. She had 30 days. 30 days to find a way to save the last being of its kind. 30 days to prove that kindness was stronger than fear. She was not sure it was possible, but she had to try. In the containment chamber, weighted with its blankets wrapped around its dark form, its lights flickered softly when entered. The psychic pressure was gentle now, almost warm, almost like welcome. YUNA, friend. Yes, said, sitting down beside the creature. I am your friend, and I am going to find a way to save you, I promise. Extended a tendril of darkness and touched her hand. It was cold, so cold, but gentle. The lights flickered in a new pattern. Did not need the translation machine to understand. Thank you. She squeezed the tendril softly and began to plan. The dreadnought arrived on day 23. It was called Final Word, a massive ship built for one purpose, destruction. Its hull was black and from 100 battles. Its weapons could crack planets. Its crew had ended entire species that the collective deemed too dangerous to exist. Admiral Shen stood on the command deck and looked at the small research station floating in front of him. He was old. His face was weathered from centuries of war. He had seen things that would break most minds, and he had not broken. He had simply become harder. Specimen 227, he said to his officers. Class 7 threat. Termination authorized by the Collective High Council. The officers nodded. They had done this before. Find the monster, kill the monster, move on to the next monster. News of the dreadnought spread through the station like fire. Scientists packed their belongings. Evacuation shuttles prepared for departure. Governor sent urgent messages to the collective, asking for more time, but the responses were clear. The decision was final. Refuse to leave. She stayed in the containment chamber with. She had spent 2 months living alongside this creature. She had watched it learn and grow. She had felt its loneliness become something less heavy. She had taught it simple words. Warmth, safety, friend. Now slept curled around her when she visited. Its darkness wrapped around her like a protective shell. Its fear field had become almost invisible when they were together. The creature that once killed with its presence now radiated something closer to peace. They are coming to kill you, told one evening. A big ship with big weapons. They are afraid of you. Understand, others, always afraid. I am going to try to stop them. YUNA, danger. YUNA, leave, safe. No, shook her head firmly. I am not leaving you alone again. The lights in space flickered with something like confusion. It did not understand. Everyone had always left. Everyone had always run. Why would this small human stay when death was coming? BYOL monster, others say. BYOL, wrong, bad. You are not a monster, placed her hand against the dark membrane. It was so cold. You are my friend, and I protect my friends. Admiral Shen sent a message to the station. All personnel were ordered to evacuate within 12 hours. Anyone remaining would be considered collateral damage. The termination would proceed regardless. Governor came to the containment chamber one last time. He stood outside the observation window and looked down at sitting beside the creature. You should leave, he said through the intercom. This is foolish. Your death will not save it. Maybe not, replied without looking up. But I will not abandon someone who has been abandoned their whole life. It is not a person, it is a creature. Now looked up, her eyes were fierce. Has a name, has feelings, has spent 12,000 years in pain because no one tried to understand. If that does not make someone a person, then what does? Governor had no answer. He stood there for a long moment, his 4 arms hanging at his sides. Then he turned and walked away. There was nothing more to say. Lieutenant received his orders that night. He was a human Marine stationed on Final Word. His team was assigned to extract Dr. Park from the containment chamber by force. The Admiral was clear. Get the human out, then destroy the station. Did not like the orders. He had read reports. He had watched her recordings. Something about this felt wrong, but he was a soldier. He followed orders. That was his job. His team entered the station through the emergency airlocks. 6 Marines in full combat gear, weapons ready. They moved through the empty hallways toward the lower levels. Their equipment detected the psychic field long before they reached the containment chamber. It was weak, but growing stronger as they approached. Stay focused, told his team. Helmets filter most of the psychic noise. Stay calm and stay professional. They reached the containment door, took a deep breath and gave the order to open it. The moment the door slid open, sphere field erupted. It happened faster than expected. The creature had sensed the threat. It had felt the hostile intentions, and its survival instincts had taken over. 5 Marines collapsed immediately. Their hearts stopped before they hit the ground. The psychic pressure was like standing in the path of a falling mountain, overwhelming, absolute, final. Stayed standing. He did not know how. Maybe it was training, maybe it was stubbornness, maybe it was something about humans that made them harder to break. His vision blurred. His chest felt like it was being crushed, but he forced himself to stay on his feet. He raised his weapon. His hands were shaking. Through the haze of terror, he could see the creature in the chamber. It was huge and dark, wrapping itself around something on the floor. No, not something, someone. It was wrapping itself around. Aimed at the darkness, his finger touched the trigger. One shot, and the threat would be neutralized. But stood up. She stepped in front of the creature. She was pale and thin and looked like she had not slept in days, but her eyes were steady. "Look at it," she commanded. Her voice cut through the psychic noise like a sharp blade. "Really look." Looked, he saw the creature behind her. He saw the way it was not trying to attack. He saw the blankets wrapped around its form, silver and blue and soft green. He saw the way it positioned its body not to strike at, but to shield her, to protect her from the man with the gun. He saw an 8-foot nightmare doing everything in its power to keep one small human safe. "It is scared," said. "It has been scared its whole life. Everyone it ever reached out to died or ran, everyone except me. I stayed. I sat with it in the dark. I gave it a blanket. And now it is trying to protect me because I am the only one who ever showed it kindness." His weapon shook in his hands. His training screamed at him to fire. His orders were clear: extract the human, eliminate the threat. But his eyes saw something his training had not prepared him for. He saw a scared child hiding behind the only person who had ever loved it. He lowered his weapon. "Admiral," he said into his comm unit. His voice was rough, unsteady. "I am unable to complete extraction." The Admiral's voice crackled back. "Explain, Lieutenant." Looked at the creature huddled in its blankets. He looked at standing fierce and protective in front of it. He thought about the orders he had been given and the orders he was choosing to break. "Because it is scared, sir. It is just scared." There was silence on the comm. Then the Admiral's voice came back, cold and final. "Return to the ship, Lieutenant. The termination will proceed as planned." The communication cut off. Stood in the doorway, weapon still lowered. Behind him, his fallen teammates lay silent. In front of him, a human woman and a dark god waited to see what he would do. He made his choice. "I am staying," he said. He removed his helmet and set down his weapon. "If you are going to die here, I will die with you, because you are right. This is not a monster, and what we are doing is wrong." Smiled, it was tired and sad and grateful. "Thank you." In the space above the station, Final Word's weapons began to power up. The countdown to termination started. 30 minutes until the station and everything in it would be vaporized. 3 beings stood in a dark chamber waiting for the end. A scientist, a soldier, and a creature made of darkness and stars. But they were not alone anymore, and somehow that made the waiting easier. 20 minutes until the end. Sat on the cold floor of the containment chamber. Lieutenant sat beside her, his armor heavy and useless now. Wrapped itself around both of them, its dark membrane creating a cocoon of shadow and cold. The station was empty. Everyone had evacuated. Only the 3 of them remained, waiting for the dreadnought's weapons to fire. "I am sorry," whispered to. "I tried, I really tried." "YUNA, friend, not sorry. YUNA gave BYO. Warmth gave BYOL. Name gave BYO. Not alone." The translation equipment projected the words on a small screen, read them through her tears. "You deserved better than this," she said. "You deserved 12,000 years of kindness, not 12,000 years of running." BYOL, happy now, first time, long time, happy. Watched the exchange. He had never believed in things he could not see or fight. He had spent his life following orders, doing his duty, staying practical. But sitting here, watching a monster comfort a crying scientist, he felt something change inside him. "Dr. Park," he said quietly, "why did you do it? Why did you risk everything for this creature?" Wiped her eyes. "Because someone had to. Because if we only help the things that are easy to help, we are not really helping at all. The universe is full of scared, lost, misunderstood beings. Someone has to be the one who sits down in the darkness with them." "But why you?" "Because I know what it feels like." Looked at its flickering lights. "When I was young, I was alone, I was poor. I did not fit in anywhere. I used to lie in bed at night and wonder if anyone would ever see me. Really see me. Not the strange, quiet girl who worked too hard. Not the problem to be fixed or the charity case to be, just me." She touched its dark form gently. "Then I grew up and learned that the universe is full of beings like that, crying out in the darkness, waiting for someone to see them. I decided I would be that someone, even if it killed me." Was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "It is about to kill you now." "I know," smiled sadly, "but I do not regret it." 15 minutes until the end. Shifted around them. Its lights flickered faster now. Something was happening inside its form. Something old and powerful was waking up. "YUNA BYO has idea." Looked at the translation screen. "What do you mean?" "BYOL species speak, through space, through STARS, BYOL voice KILLS, but BYOL learn new word from YUNA." Frowned, "I do not understand." Extended a tendril of darkness. It touched forehead gently. Suddenly, she understood. She saw what was planning. It was beautiful and terrifying and impossible. She whispered, "Are you sure?" YUNA teach. BYO word friend BYO never have word before, only fear, only scream. Now BYO has better word. The creature's form began to pulse. The lights in its face grew brighter. The temperature in the chamber dropped until their breath came out in white clouds. BYOL will speak word to everyone. Grabs arm. "Get down, cover your ears, this is going to be loud." "What is happening?" Is going to scream, but not with fear this time. 10 minutes until the end. Rose up. Its dark form expanded until it filled the entire containment chamber. The membrane rippled and pulsed with energy older than stars. The lights in its face blazed like 1,000 suns. And then it spoke. Not with fear, not with terror, not with the ancient scream that had killed everything it touched for 12,000 years. It spoke with one simple word. Friend YUNA, friend. The word exploded outward. It passed through the containment chamber like it was not there. It passed through the station's walls and shielding. It passed through space itself, rippling across the sector like a wave in an ocean made of starlight. Every being within 100 light years felt it, not as fear, not as pain, but as pure emotion, the desperate love of a child for the only person who had ever shown it kindness, the gratitude of a creature that had been lost for and finally found something worth holding on to. On final word, Admiral Shen stood with his hand over the firing controls. The weapon was ready, 3 seconds until termination. Then the wave hit him. He felt its message wash over his mind. He felt 12,000 years of loneliness compressed into a single instant. He felt the moment a scared monster touched a silver blanket for the first time. He felt the warmth of someone sitting in the darkness, asking for nothing, offering everything. He felt a creature saying the word friend for the first time in its existence. Tears rolled down his weathered face. His officers were crying too. Everyone on the ship was crying, not from sadness, from something they could not name, something that had been locked away in the hardest parts of their hearts. Admiral and officer said, voice shaking, "Weapons are ready, awaiting your command." Shen looked at the firing controls. His hand was still hovering over them. One button, one press, that was all it would take. He thought about the wars he had fought, the species he had destroyed, the monsters he had killed because the collective told him they were dangerous. He thought about all the times he had chosen duty over doubt. Then he thought about a creature wrapping itself around a silver blanket. "Stand down," he said. "Sorry." "I said stand down. Power down the weapons, all of them." The bridge was silent. Officers looked at each other in confusion. This was not procedure. This was not how Admiral Shen operated. "Sir, our orders are clear. The collective." "The collective can talk to me directly if they have a problem." Shen's voice was rough but firm. "I have killed monsters my entire life. I know what monsters look like. That thing down there is not a monster. It is a child who just learned its first word." The weapons powered down. In the containment chamber Held's form against her. She did not know if the plan had worked. She did not know if they were about to die. She just held on and hoped. Her communicator crackled. Governor's voice came through, stunned and uncertain. "Dr. Park, the dreadnought has stood down. We have received orders from the Collective High Council. The termination is cancelled." Laughed. It was a strange sound, half sob and half joy. "What happened?" "I do not know exactly, but the Admiral, he is crying. Everyone is crying. What did you do?" Looked at, the creature's lights flickered softly, peacefully. For the first time since she had met it, the darkness seemed warm. "We said hello," she answered. "We said hello in a way everyone could understand." 12 years passed. Lived on a protected world at the edge of human space. It was a small planet with cold air and dark skies, perfect for a being made of shadows and stars. Dr. Park visited every month. She was director of relations now, but she always made time for her old friend. She brought blankets, had a collection of 237 now, in every color and texture imaginable. Lieutenant had resigned from the military. He worked on World as a caretaker. He did not talk much about what had happened that day on the station, but sometimes, when the night was dark and the stars were bright, he sat with and watched the sky in comfortable silence. Children came to visit on educational tour. They learned about the creature that everyone had called a monster. They learned about the human who had given it a name and a blanket. They learned that the universe was full of things they did not understand, and that was not something to fear. On the anniversary of their first meeting, asked a question she had wondered about for years. "Why did you try to communicate that day? You could have spoken to anyone like that. Why wait until we were about to die?" His answer rippled through her mind, as clear and warm as sunlight. "Before YUNA, BYOL, only know fear. BYOL, speak fear. Others die. YUNA, give BY, new. Word friend, word not kill, word heal. YUNA, look, AT, BYOL, not see, monster, see, cold, see, lonely, see, scared. YUNA, give warmth. That is WHY, YUNA first, that is WHY, YUNA, always friend." Wrapped her arms around the darkness, and the darkness wrapped itself around her. Above them, stars burned cold and eternal. But here, on this small world at the edge of everything, two beings from opposite ends of existence shared something the universe rarely offered. Understanding. Far away, in the great halls of the collective, historians were writing a new chapter in the record of humanity. They did not write about weapons or wars or conquests. They wrote about a woman who had sat down in a room full of fear and refused to leave. They wrote about the moment when humanity taught the galaxy its most important lesson. Monsters are often just frightened children, and kindness costs nothing but can save everything. The chapter ended with a single quote, attributed to Dr. Park. "I did not do anything special. I just saw something cold and gave it warmth. I saw something alone and gave it company. I saw something afraid and gave it patience. Anyone could have done what I did. The tragedy is that no one tried for 12,000 years." In the darkness of space, on a small world circled by quiet moons, a creature made of shadows held its collection of blankets close. Its lights flickered softly, peacefully. It was not alone anymore. And that made all the difference.